My mother saw a photo of my daughter lying in a hospital bed, tubes running out of her tiny chest just hours after open heart surgery, and she texted me 4 words. Stop making her our problem. I read that message 3 times before I understood it was real. My hands were still shaking from holding my 4-year-old daughter's hand in a recovery room. And my own mother looked at a picture of her granddaughter fighting for her life, and all she felt was annoyance. My name is Claire Bennett. I am 34 years old. What happened after that text message changed my entire family forever. To understand how we got there, you need to go back almost 2 years, to the day a cardiologist sat across from my husband Ryan and me in a small gray office and told us our daughter Lily had a congenital heart defect. She was 2 years old at the time. She had always been a little smaller than other kids her age, always got tired faster at the playground, always turned a strange shade of blue around her lips when she cried too hard. We thought that was just Lily being Lily. We didn't know her heart had a hole in it that was slowly growing more dangerous. The doctor's name was Dr. Adeyemi. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice, the kind built for delivering terrible news. She'll need surgery eventually, she told us. Open heart surgery. Not today, not this year maybe, but eventually. We'll monitor her closely until then. I remember gripping Ryan's hand so hard my knuckles turned white. I remember nodding like I understood even though nothing in my body felt like it understood anything at all. Lily sat in my lap that day, humming quietly to herself, completely unaware that the 2 people who loved her most in the world were falling apart quietly beside her. That night I called my mother. Her name is Eleanor. I sat on my bathroom floor with the door locked because I didn't want Lily to hear me cry, and I told her everything. The hole in Lily's heart. The word surgery. The fear that had settled into my chest like a stone. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, well, these things happen. Kids are resilient. That was it. No questions about how I was doing. No offer to come visit. Just 5 words. Then she changed the subject to ask about my sister Paige's new apartment in Chicago. I told myself she just didn't understand the seriousness of it. I told myself a lot of things over the years to protect the idea that my mother loved me the way mothers are supposed to love their children. But the truth I had been avoiding since I was a little girl, was that my mother had never loved me the way she loved Paige. Paige is 2 years younger than me. Paige was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who made people laugh at dinner parties. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who got good grades and never caused trouble and therefore never seemed to need anything from anyone. Growing up, my accomplishments were footnotes. Paige's were headlines. When I made the honor roll, my mother nodded and said that was nice. When Paige got a B+ on a test she barely studied for, my mother framed the report card. I used to think it was something I imagined, some twisted version of sibling rivalry playing tricks on my memory. But then I had Lily and suddenly I understood exactly how a mother is supposed to look at her child. And I realized my mother had never once looked at me that way. For the next year and a half, Lily's heart condition stayed stable enough that we didn't need to rush into surgery. We visited Dr. Adeyemi every 3 months. We watched Lily's growth charts and oxygen levels like they were sacred texts. Through all of it, my mother stayed distant. She would ask about Lily during our phone calls the way someone asks about the weather, a polite formality before moving on to the topic she actually cared about, which was almost always Paige. Paige, meanwhile, had gotten engaged to a man named Trevor. A guy with a nice smile and an even nicer car who worked in finance and talked about himself constantly. My mother threw herself into wedding planning like it was her full-time job. She flew to Chicago 4 times in 6 months to help Paige choose flowers and cake flavors and venue lighting. She never once flew to see Lily, who lived only 90 minutes away by car. I remember calling my mother one Sunday evening, hoping to talk about something other than the wedding for 5 minutes. Lily had just had a checkup and her numbers were looking concerning. Dr. Adeyemi had mentioned that surgery might need to happen sooner than we originally thought. Mom, can we talk about Lily for a second? I asked. Her cardiologist thinks we might be looking at surgery within the next few months. There was a pause, then my mother sighed like I had asked her to do something exhausting. Claire, I really can't deal with this right now. Paige and I are trying to finalize the seating chart, and it's already stressful enough. I sat there holding the phone, feeling something inside me go very quiet and cold. This is your granddaughter's heart, Mom. I know that, she snapped. But everything is always a crisis with you. Can't things just be normal for once? I hung up that night and didn't call her again for 3 weeks. It was the longest we had ever gone without speaking, and honestly the silence felt like relief. Then in March, Dr. Adeyemi called us in for an urgent appointment. Lily's condition had worsened faster than expected. The hole in her heart needed to be repaired now, not eventually, not someday. No. Surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning in April. I called my mother that evening to tell her the date. I don't know why I still hoped for something different. Maybe some small, stubborn part of me kept believing that if I explained clearly enough, she would finally understand how serious this was. Surgery is on April 14th, I told her. They're opening her chest, Mom. They're going to stop her heart and fix it and start it again. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's the same week as Paige's bridal shower." I actually laughed, a short, disbelieving laugh with no humor in it at all. "I'm sorry, what?" "The shower has been planned for months, Claire. All the invitations are already out. I can't just cancel it." "I'm not asking you to cancel the shower," I said slowly, carefully. "I'm telling you that your granddaughter is having open heart surgery." "I heard you," she said, her voice sharp now. "I just don't understand why you always need everyone to drop everything the moment something happens with Lily. Paige has been planning this for so long." I hung up without saying goodbye. Ryan found me sitting on the kitchen floor 20 minutes later, staring at nothing, the phone still in my hand. "What did she say?" he asked quietly, already knowing from my face that it wasn't good. I told him. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he sat down on the floor beside me and put his arm around my shoulders. "We don't need her," he said. "We have each other. We have Lily. We have my parents who love that little girl more than anything." That was true. Ryan's parents, Tom and Judith, had been calling every week since the diagnosis, sending cards, offering to fly in whenever we needed help. They treated Lily like the most precious thing in the world because to them she was. But knowing my in-laws loved Lily didn't erase the ache of knowing my own mother didn't seem to. The weeks leading up to surgery were a blur of paperwork, preoperative appointments, and trying to explain to a 4-year-old why she couldn't eat breakfast on a morning that felt very important. Lily was scared, asking questions that broke my heart to answer. "Will it hurt, Mommy? Will you be there when I wake up? Am I going to die?" I told her the truth in pieces small enough for her to hold. It might hurt a little, but the doctors would help with that. I would be there the entire time, waiting right outside the door. And no, she was not going to die because Dr. Adeyemi and her whole team were going to fix her heart so she could run and jump and laugh without getting tired anymore. I called my mother 2 more times before the surgery date, not because I expected anything different, but because some stubborn part of me still hoped. Both times she talked mostly about the wedding. Both times I hung up feeling smaller than before. The morning of April 14th arrived cold and gray. Ryan and I sat in the hospital waiting room for 6 hours while surgeons worked on our daughter's heart. 6 hours of watching the clock, of drinking terrible coffee we didn't taste. Ryan's parents sat with us the entire time. My mother did not call once. When Dr. Adeyemi finally walked into the waiting room, still in her scrubs, exhaustion written across her face, my whole body went rigid with fear. Then she smiled and I felt every muscle in my body release at once. "The surgery went beautifully," she said. "Lily did great. She's in recovery now and she's going to be just fine." I don't remember standing up. All I remember is the relief, pure and overwhelming, flooding through every part of me. They let us see Lily an hour later. She looked so small in that hospital bed, tubes running from her chest, monitors beeping steadily beside her, a bandage covering the incision that had saved her life. But she was breathing. Her heart was beating properly for the first time in her entire life. I sat beside her bed and held her small hand and cried quietly, grateful tears this time. Ryan took a photo of her that afternoon, once she was stable and the nurses said it was okay. Lily was sleeping peacefully, one small hand curled near her face, the bandage visible just above the neckline of her gown. It wasn't graphic. It was tender. It was a photo of survival. I sent that photo to a small family group chat that included my mother, my father, and Paige along with a message. "Surgery went perfectly. Lily is stable and resting. Thank you all for your thoughts." My father replied first. "So relieved. Give her a kiss from Grandpa." My father has never been an especially warm man, but he has always been decent. Paige replied next with 3 heart emojis and a message that said, "So happy for you guys." Then my mother's response came through. Stop making her our problem. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. I read them again, certain I had misunderstood something. But there was no context that could make those words mean anything other than exactly what they said. Ryan saw my face before I said a word. "What is it?" he asked, already reaching for my phone. I handed it to him silently. I watched his expression shift from confusion to disbelief to something darker. Pure anger. "She said what?" His voice was quiet, but it shook with something dangerous underneath. I didn't answer. I just took the phone back and set it face down on the small table beside Lily's bed, as if hiding the screen could somehow undo what had already been said. That night, after Ryan drove home to shower and check on our dog, I sat alone beside my daughter's hospital bed and let myself finally think clearly about everything I had been avoiding for years. My mother had never loved me the way she loved Paige. I had known that somewhere deep down. But there is a difference between suspecting something and having it confirmed in 4 cold words sent to a mother whose child had just survived open heart surgery. I thought about every birthday she forgot to call on. Every achievement she brushed past on her way to praising Paige. Every time I had needed her and she had somehow found a reason to be too busy, too tired, too focused on my sister's life to notice mine. And I thought about something else, something that had been sitting quietly in the back of my mind for months. Something I hadn't wanted to look at directly. 2 years earlier, right around the time Lily was first diagnosed, my grandmother, my mother's own mother, had passed away. Grandma Josephine had left behind a modest trust, money meant to be split between my mother and her brother, my Uncle Frank, and then eventually passed down to their children. I remembered faintly my mother mentioning something about setting aside a portion of that inheritance for medical emergencies, exactly the kind of situation Lily's heart condition represented. She had said it once, almost in passing. "Don't worry about the surgery costs when the time comes. There's money set aside for that." I hadn't thought much about it since. Our insurance had covered most of Lily's surgery costs, though we still owed several $1,000s in remaining bills. But now, staring at those 4 cruel words on my phone screen, I found myself wondering where that money actually was. The next morning, I called my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister-in-law, married to Uncle Frank. Aunt Carol had always been kind to me in a distant sort of way. But something told me she might know something. "Claire, honey, how's Lily doing?" she asked. "She's doing okay," I said. "Recovering well. Actually, I wanted to ask you about Grandma Josephine's trust. Do you know if there was ever a portion set aside for medical expenses? For the grandchildren?" There was a pause on the line long enough that I knew something was wrong. "Claire," Aunt Carol said carefully, "your mother never mentioned this to you?" "Mentioned what?" Another pause. "A medical contingency fund. $25,000, set aside specifically in case any of the grandchildren needed help with serious medical expenses. Your grandmother was very clear about that when she set up the trust, especially after she found out about Lily's heart condition." My stomach dropped. "And what happened to it?" Aunt Carol's voice grew quieter. "Your mother withdrew it about 8 months ago. She told Frank it was for Lily's surgery. Frank didn't question it. Why would he? We never received a single dollar of that money," I said. "We're still paying those surgery costs ourselves." Silence stretched across the line. Then Aunt Carol said, "Claire, I think you need to look into where that money actually went." I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, feeling something shift permanently inside my chest. $25,000. Set aside by my dying grandmother specifically for Lily, and I had never seen a single cent of it. My mother had taken it 8 months ago, around the same time Paige and Trevor had announced their engagement, around the same time my mother had started talking obsessively about wedding budgets and venues. I didn't want to believe it. But I had learned over the past 2 years exactly how far my mother was willing to look away from Lily's suffering when something more exciting was happening in Paige's life. I called Ryan at work and told him everything. "We need to see the actual trust documents," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We need proof before we say anything to anyone." That afternoon, I drove to the small law office of Mr. Patterson, the attorney who had handled Grandma Josephine's estate. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though my hands were trembling. Mr. Patterson pulled up the trust documents and turned the screen toward me. There it was, in plain legal language. A medical contingency fund of $25,000, established for the benefit of Grandma Josephine's grandchildren in the event of serious medical need. The document even mentioned Lily by name, referencing her heart condition directly. The withdrawal request came through 8 months ago, Mr. Patterson confirmed. Signed by your mother Eleanor as trustee. The stated purpose on the form was, quote, medical expenses for granddaughter's heart surgery, end quote. I felt sick. We never received that money. Not $1. Mr. Patterson's expression grew serious. Then I would strongly suggest you find out where those funds actually went. This could constitute a serious breach of fiduciary duty, potentially even fraud, depending on how the money was used. I already had a sickening suspicion about where the money had gone. I just needed proof. That evening I sat down with Ryan and we looked carefully into my sister's wedding expenses. Paige had been posting constantly on social media, tagging vendors, sharing photos of dress fittings and venue walkthroughs. It didn't take long to find a pattern. A venue deposit of $8,000, paid in cash according to a comment Paige left thanking my mother for covering it. A florist package worth $6,000. A designer wedding dress that Paige had proudly shown off, mentioning that her mother had insisted on paying for it as a gift. The math added up in a way that made my stomach turn. Roughly $25,000 in wedding expenses, all suddenly covered by my mother starting around 8 months ago, right after she withdrew the medical contingency fund meant for my daughter's heart surgery. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake beside Ryan, replaying every cold conversation, every dismissive comment, every moment my mother had chosen Paige over Lily, over me, over the truth. She wasn't just emotionally distant. She was actively hiding something. She had stolen money set aside for my daughter's life-saving surgery and spent it on my sister's wedding flowers. I thought about confronting her immediately, but something stopped me. Some quieter, more strategic part of me told me to wait, to gather everything, to make sure there would be no room for her to twist the story into one where she was the victim, the way she always somehow managed to do. So I waited. I focused on Lily's recovery instead, watching her get stronger every day. Within 2 weeks she was home from the hospital, running around our living room in careful bursts, her lips finally staying a healthy pink color even after she laughed too hard. Watching her thrive made the anger inside me burn even hotter, because I understood now exactly what my mother had risked. If our insurance hadn't covered as much as it did, that stolen money could have meant the difference between Lily getting her surgery on time or facing dangerous delays. 3 weeks after the surgery, Paige's wedding shower took place exactly as scheduled, the same event my mother had prioritized over her granddaughter's open-heart surgery. I wasn't invited. My mother texted me once during that period. Hope Lily is doing better. Things have just been so busy with the wedding. No apology for the earlier text. No acknowledgement of what she had said. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Mr. Patterson back and asked what our legal options were. He explained that as trustee, my mother had a legal obligation to use trust funds only for their designated purpose. Diverting a medical contingency fund to pay for personal expenses constituted a clear breach of fiduciary duty, and depending on how aggressively we pursued it, this could result in her being required to repay the funds, removed as trustee entirely, or facing actual fraud charges. What would you recommend? I asked him. He considered the question carefully. That depends on what outcome matters most to you. Do you want the money returned? Do you want her held accountable? Or do you simply want this documented for leverage later? I thought about that for a long time. I didn't need the money desperately, not anymore, not now that Lily was healthy. What I wanted more than anything was for my mother to finally face what she had done to her own granddaughter, in a way she couldn't twist or minimize or explain away. I decided to plan something I never thought I would have the courage to do. Paige's wedding was scheduled for the following month. A beautiful outdoor ceremony at a vineyard just outside Chicago, funded, I now knew, partially by money stolen from my daughter's medical fund. I was invited, expected to smile and celebrate and pretend everything in our family was as warm as my mother always insisted it was. I decided I would go. And I decided I would bring the truth with me. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I gathered everything carefully. Copies of the trust documents. Screenshots of Paige's posts thanking our mother for specific wedding expenses, with dates that matched the timeline of the missing funds. Copies of our own medical bills. And a screenshot of that text message. Stop making her our problem. I didn't plan to make a scene at the wedding itself. That wasn't fair to Paige, who I genuinely believed had no idea where the money had come from. Instead, I planned something quieter, something my mother would have no way to spin into a story about her difficult, dramatic older daughter causing problems again. The wedding took place on a warm Saturday afternoon in June. The vineyard was beautiful, string lights woven through the grapevines, long wooden tables set with white linens and wildflower centerpieces. Paige looked genuinely radiant in her designer dress, the one paid for with money meant to save my daughter's life. I felt a strange, hollow ache watching her walk down the aisle, happy and unaware. I got through the ceremony and the toasts. Ryan sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee. Lily stayed home that weekend with Ryan's parents, safely far away from whatever was about to happen. I found my moment during the reception after dinner, but before the dancing started. I approached my mother where she stood near the edge of the dance floor, glowing with pride, accepting compliments about the beautiful wedding she had helped put together. "Mom," I said quietly, "can we talk for a minute? Somewhere private." She looked annoyed but followed me toward a quiet corner near the vineyard's stone wall, away from the music and the crowd. "What is it, Claire?" she asked, checking her watch. "I really need to get back out there." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of documents I had been preparing for weeks. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply held the phone toward her, showing her the trust withdrawal document with her signature clearly visible at the bottom. "I know about the medical contingency fund," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "The $25,000 Grandma Josephine set aside specifically for Lily's surgery. I know you withdrew it 8 months ago, claiming it was for her medical expenses. And I know exactly where that money actually went." My mother's face went pale, then flushed red with something between panic and anger. "Claire, this isn't the time or the place for this." "It's the perfect time," I said quietly. "Because this wedding, all of it, the flowers, the venue, the dress Paige is wearing right now, all of it was paid for with money that was supposed to save my daughter's life." "That's not," she started, but I cut her off, calm and steady, refusing to let her twist the conversation the way she always had. "I have the trust documents. I have Paige's own social media posts thanking you for paying for specific things, with dates that match exactly when you took that money. I have our medical bills showing every dollar Ryan and I paid ourselves because that money never came to us. And I have the text message you sent me the night after Lily's open heart surgery, telling me to stop making her, my daughter, your granddaughter, your problem." My mother's eyes darted around, checking to see if anyone was watching us, clearly more concerned about being overheard than about anything I had just said. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "I am keeping my voice down," I said. "I'm not here to ruin Paige's wedding. I'm not here to embarrass you in front of everyone, even though you deserve exactly that. I'm here to tell you that I know the truth now. All of it. And things are going to change." "What do you want?" she asked, her voice tight and cornered. "I want the money repaid to the trust exactly as Grandma Josephine intended it. I want you removed as trustee so this can never happen again to anyone else in this family. And I want you to understand that I am done pretending you love Lily and me the way you love Paige. I've spent my whole life making excuses for you. That's over now." My mother stared at me for a long moment, something shifting behind her eyes, though I couldn't quite tell if it was guilt or simply the calculation of someone trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. "You'll destroy this family," she finally said. "Is that really what you want, over money?" "This was never about the money," I said, and for the first time my voice caught slightly, the calm cracking just enough to let the years of hurt show through. "It was about you seeing a photo of your granddaughter recovering from open heart surgery and calling her a problem. It was about you choosing Paige's flowers over Lily's life. You didn't destroy this family tonight, Mom. You destroyed it 8 months ago, the moment you decided a wedding mattered more than a heart surgery. I'm just the one finally saying it out loud." I walked away from her before she could respond, back toward Ryan, who was watching from across the reception with quiet concern on his face. I nodded to him, a small signal that it was done, and we quietly slipped away from the wedding not long after, leaving before the dancing began, before anyone else had to know what had just happened between us. The days that followed were tense in ways I had never experienced with my family before. My mother called several times, alternating between angry accusations that I was trying to ruin her relationship with Paige and pleading attempts to convince me to let the whole thing go quietly. I didn't answer most of those calls. The ones I did answer I kept brief, redirecting every conversation back to Mr. Patterson, who was now handling the situation formally on our behalf. Paige called me too about a week after the wedding, her voice tight with confusion and hurt. "Mom told me what you said to her," she said. "Is it true? Did she really take money that was supposed to be for Lily?" I told her everything calmly and honestly, showing her the same documents I had shown our mother. There was a long silence on the phone after I finished. "I didn't know," Paige finally said, her voice small. "I swear, Claire, I had no idea where that money came from. Mom just kept saying she wanted to help pay for things." I believed her. Whatever complicated feelings I had about my sister over the years, about the favoritism, about the ways our mother had always elevated her over me, I didn't believe Paige had known the truth. She sounded genuinely shaken, genuinely horrified in a way that felt real. "I don't know what to do with this," Paige admitted. "She's already spent it. I can't exactly give the flowers back." "I'm not asking you to," I said. "This isn't about you, Paige. This is about Mom and what she chose to do and what she's going to have to face because of it." Over the following months, with Mr. Patterson's guidance, we pursued a formal legal claim against my mother as trustee, seeking repayment of the misappropriated funds along with her removal as trustee of the remaining estate. It wasn't a quick process. There were meetings, documents, uncomfortable conversations with Uncle Frank, who was devastated to learn what his sister had done, calling me twice just to apologize for something that was never his fault. But eventually, facing the clear evidence and the very real possibility of formal fraud charges, my mother agreed to a settlement. She would repay the full $25,000 to a newly established medical fund, this time managed by Uncle Frank alone, and she would step down as trustee of the entire family trust permanently. It wasn't enough to undo what she had done. No amount of repaid money could erase the memory of reading that text message beside my daughter's hospital bed, of watching my mother choose flowers over a child's beating heart. But it was accountability, real and documented, the kind my mother had never once had to face in her entire life. My relationship with her has never recovered, not really. We speak occasionally now, brief, careful conversations that never quite reach beneath the surface. She has never apologized, not properly, not in the way that would actually mean something. Once, during a stiff, awkward phone call around the holidays, she said something close to an apology, something like, "I probably could have handled things differently." I didn't argue with her. I simply let the silence sit there, because I had stopped needing her to fully understand what she had done in order for me to move forward without her. There was a time in my life when that silence would have felt unbearable, when I would have filled it with excuses on her behalf just to make the discomfort go away. I don't do that anymore. My father, in his own quiet way, has tried harder since everything came out. He calls more often now, asks real questions about Lily's recovery, sends small gifts on her birthday that actually reflect things she likes, the kind of thoughtful details that used to be entirely absent from our relationship. It's not the relationship I dreamed of as a child, but it's something honest, and honest has come to mean more to me than almost anything else. Paige and I are closer now than we have ever been, strangely enough. Something about that wedding, about learning the truth together, cracked open a version of sisterhood we had never really had access to before. She calls to check on Lily now, sends photos of her own life without the constant undercurrent of comparison that used to color everything between us. She has, on more than one occasion, told me she wishes she had seen our mother more clearly sooner. Neither of us mentions our mother much when we talk. We don't need to. Lily is 5 years old now, healthy and strong, her heart beating steadily and properly for the first time in her life. She runs across playgrounds without turning blue. She laughs until she's breathless and simply keeps laughing, no fear attached to it anymore. Sometimes when I watch her play, I think about that text message, about those 4 cruel words that once threatened to define how I understood my own worth as a mother and a daughter. Stop making her our problem. Lily was never a problem. She never will be. And neither was I. If you're listening to this and something about it feels painfully familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to stop protecting people who never once tried to protect you. You are allowed to demand honesty from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, even when that honesty costs you a relationship that was never as safe as it looked from the outside. Family isn't defined by blood alone. It's defined by who shows up when everything falls apart, and who quietly disappears the moment things get inconvenient. My mother taught me without meaning to exactly what love isn't. And in doing so, she taught me exactly what to give my daughter instead. Every single day I choose Lily. Not because it's convenient, not because it fits neatly into whatever else is happening in my life, but because that is what love actually looks like. Showing up. Every time. No matter what. Tell me in the comments, would you have confronted your family the way I did, or would you have handled it differently?